the thing I'm jealous most about you is that I see you take pictures of cool Harry Potter things all the time.
Yeah.
You're always going to Wizarding Worlds. You're always going to Hogwarts.
Yeah.
This was the year that Deathly Hallows Part 2 came out and sort of concluded that whole cinematic franchise, I guess, for 5 years until now we're getting the Fantastic Beasts.
Extension.
The HPC. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Deathly Hallows and wrapping up that series.
I mean, obviously, it was just this huge culmination. I mean, a series like this had never been undertaken. Just knowing what they were doing going in, the fact that it was supposed to be 7 movies, ended up being 8, and the fact that they were taking this huge gamble because they had to cast a bunch of kid actors, and how that could have gone horribly wrong.
I mean, could you imagine if any of them just became drug addicts?
Right.
One of them did.
But they were awesome. But
Right?
it was, I mean, the thing
They
is,
had to
like,
replace
was one of
Goyle.
Draco's friends. Yeah.
Yes. He is not. No, Crab. Crab is
yeah.
not in
He's like,
Deathly Hallows.
he's like
was a
in
method
prison
actor.
or something.
He was a method actor. But yeah, honestly, casting the 3 of them, like that's, I guess it was on Chris Columbus, you know, for those first couple movies and the sort of that world building, but then handing the baton off to obviously Alfonso Cuarón, and then eventually David Yates, who ended up finishing the series in such an incredible fashion.
Yeah, it was just really impressive accomplishment, no matter what you feel. And I think, that final movie was a big event because it meant so much, the series, to people at that point. It also, it started a trend that I know is sort of a controversial trend of splitting a book into multiple movies. I think personally that is one of the better examples of it. I know some people don't love Deathly Hallows 1, I do, but the second one obviously is the action-heavy one,
Sure.
and so much has to happen. But I think they really pull it off, and you're very invested by the time Harry and Voldemort are having that face-off.
Yeah, and just the fact that you see the sort of the breadth and the journey of the series to go from the first Harry Potter is very much a kid's movie.
Yeah.
Whereas this last one, you're like, oh, all these characters I love are dying, and this is tragic, and this is terrifying, and all the money, the hot money in that room, the room of requirement.
But also the final scene, which I know it's a little weird because you have to have these actors playing the older selves, but I do love how they do all the connections back to the first movie. They don't use the John Williams score very much at that point, but then they bring it in big in that final scene with his kid, and it's kind of like, it brings it full circle, I think, in a really good way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was an incredible, the feat of having to write that final book seems like terrifying. Any final book in a giant series, like the last Dark Tower book, it seems like I don't know how you possibly wrap this up, but it was one of those things, after reading it and after seeing the movie, you're like, all right, I'm leaving satisfied, which is something rarely a series of this huge and this monumental can absolutely do.
And you get Neville Longbottom with a sword, come on.
Man, that boy became real handsome.
He ended up being a real badass.
He had more years to everyone to go, oh my god, Neville's hot now. But Neville the character, he got to have his moment.
Yeah, that was great. And it was also one of those, you've invested, over a decade with all these characters, and everyone got this really great payoff, which I love. Yeah, I still go back and I rewatch the Harry Potter movies, and aside from, this is probably my favorite, aside from Prisoner of Azkaban, just because I'm a big old, I have a big old crush on Alfonso Cuarón.
He's great.
Yeah, really great movie.
I also feel like it holds up really well. Like there's a lot of movies like even 4 or 5 years back that you go back and you can see the seams, you can see the cracks in the paint, like visually. Yeah. And I feel like both of the Deathly Hallows films, but especially with all the action spectacle in the last one, like it still looks really great. Like it's still just something like a real spectacle, when you, like some of the, like especially the last fight with Voldemort and Harry. And,
Like Star Wars, it was just a very immersive, it was a world you wanted to be in, and I think that people connected to it so much. Obviously, young people connected to it because it was about kids, but watching them grow up, I think there's so much power to that, because even though it wasn't a documentary, because they're wizards, it felt more real because we'd watched them actually age through the series.
And a lot of its viewership grew up with them, right?
Yeah.
Like they started reading the books when
I mean,
age.
I think that's sort of what she had in mind with this series, is that as she's finishing these books over 10, 15 years, people who started reading them when they were 10 are now in their 20s.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I saw so many grown-ups dressed as wizards at the midnight premiere.
Oh my God,
yeah, which I went to, even though I haven't really read all of the books.
Well, in 3 weeks, you're going to see a lot of grown-ups dressed as Jedi.
Yeah.
Enjoy that.